Hi everyone, this is Freddie with Superbike Unlimited, and we're going to bring you another update on the 2021 ZX10RR Superbike project. I know a lot of you YouTube subscribers and viewers are probably sick of seeing supermoto stuff, so if you're not, we're definitely doing stuff with both of our superbikes, the Ducati and the Kawasaki. And today what we're working on is installing our Lambda sensors on each collector. You can see 1 and 2 there, and then we'll go to the other side and you can see these guys. There they are. And of course, we use our MoTeC engine control for this application. And so naturally, we're going to be integrating this into our MoTeC system. The way you do that is you use a couple of these fine MoTeC products, the Lambda Dual. And basically, this just allows us to run in total 5 Lambda sensors, because we're still going to keep our single that's going to be at the back of the exhaust right there. And this is just going to allow us to properly fine-tune each cylinder. It'll be interesting to see what we gain from this, because on the Ducati, it's a totally different engine, but we gained about 10 horsepower just by getting each cylinder perfect. And, you know, that's considerable. So it's basically, well, it's not free, but it's easy horsepower. It doesn't cause any additional stress to this engine. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin wiring this in. So Tex has already done some of the preliminary work. This is where we're going to put these Lambda cans. You can see this one's not been terminated yet, but this is going to be where one of the plugs is going to go. And essentially what you have here is a can high, a can low, a power or 12 volt, and a ground. And you can see we have a MoTeC diagram here. This is basically just the data sheet that you get with this piece of hardware, and this is how it's all wired up. So we just need to properly configure this. Once we do that, we're going to go ahead and set it up in the software, get every sensor properly calibrated and tested, and once it's working, we'll get it tuning. That said, we're actually hoping to do some riding this weekend. Actually, we're going to be doing some riding. There's no hoping about it. We're hoping that we're going to be able to ride the ZX10. We're definitely going to be taking the Duck. We've got some work to do on that, and it's pretty much ready to rip. As you can see, this is not quite in a ready-to-race state, and we don't even have bodywork for this thing yet. Fortunately, we can just throw on some of the previous generation stuff, which we still have some carbon and Kevlar laying around. And so we'll probably race this in the old livery, but we still have a lot of work to do. There's a whole bunch of other changes that we need to do, because we are actually going to be testing out the new Pirelli tires down there this weekend. We're still shod with the Moto America Spec Dunlops, but we're going to be using this tire, which is the all-new World SBK style Pirelli. That's going to be the 265 profile on the rear and the 125/70 profile on the front. We've not used those yet. And I've always been a fan of Pirelli. Of course, I liked the Dunlops just fine, but I'm a big fan of Pirelli, and I think that I really think I'm going to like the tire better, honestly. It'll be fun to see, but I've heard nothing but good things about that tire. I'm super excited to try it. So that's the goal right now. We're going to wrap this thing up, get the Lambdas working, make some chassis changes, make some spring changes, a little bit of suspension stuff to get the bike set up for the Pirelli, and then off to the track. So next, we're going to go ahead and finish this wiring, and then hopefully we'll have enough time to get this thing on the dyno before we go. So we're making some good progress here. Tex has done a really good job of wiring up all of our stuff, and you really can't see any of that Lambda stuff in this because it's basically all under the airbox, but everything is 100% in place, wired up, 100% tested, and it looks really good. So far, we haven't implemented any trims. This thing still has to go on the dyno, but I've also been looking through our MoTeC package, and when I say package, I mean the firmware, and I found some stuff that I think might be worth a few horsepower. So we're really excited to go ahead and put this on the dyno and hopefully make a step with this thing. I'm sure we're going to make a step, but hopefully it's a big one. We're going to properly map each cylinder just like we did on the V4. And we're going to test some of these other changes. And there's some other stuff that I have on the test schedule. Once we get the base mapping done, there's some other stuff I just want to try. I don't really want to go into it, but there's some things I think that might be worth a few horsepower, and maybe we'll disclose some of that later. But here you can just kind of see what the inside of this guy looks like. It's you know, there's a lot going on in there. There's a ton of wiring. We have a lot of sensors. You know, obviously we've got our lean angle stuff, and you got our fuel pressure in here, which you can see. And it's getting to, we're at that point where we have so many sensors and so much wiring. It's all pretty tightly packed, but that's kind of the beauty of these things. We love having all this data and information, and in the end, it gives us the ability to make something super fast and proper. So now the next thing we're going to do, just in preparation of potentially riding this motorcycle this weekend, we're fully planning on doing that. We're getting pretty short on time. We're going to be leaving tomorrow, so today it's kind of like you know, full speed ahead. But we're going to put on some frame covers just because I have crashed a few times at this track specifically, and we're just going to go ahead and put those on just in case we have another little incident. Try to minimize collateral damage there. And after that, I think is that it, Tex? We're going to put it on the dyno after that?
I think so.
Yeah, and we're going to put a street tire on. I know that was something you guys were worried about, and it's a fair concern because always slicks do cost horsepower on the dyno. And it wasn't really a fair comparison before because we had a big Dunlop slick, which generally the softer Dunlop slick tires do cause some horsepower loss on the dyno. That's just not what they're not meant for dyno pulls. They're meant for going fast on the racetrack. So we're going to put a street tire on one of our wheels. Also, very important, something I just want to point out to you guys. We had some people, could say eagle-eyed, but not eagle-eyed enough viewers, who were complaining about the direction of the tire that we were using last time. And I want to point something out. Oh, that's a Pirelli. Where's it? We got some Dunlops over here. Okay. You guys were like, oh, but the arrow says it's supposed to go that way. Well, just so you know, for one, slicks can be flipped. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I've been doing that for years. But have a look-see here. Yes, you saw the one arrow, but you didn't see that one. Look at that. That tire can be run in both directions. We knew that already, but even if it didn't have the arrow, we would do that. We've been doing that for a long time with Pirelli. And pretty much every rear slick can be flipped. There's some people that do it with fronts. I don't do that. Rear's 100% okay to flip. Just like it says on that tire that you guys said we had on backwards. So shame on you. Okay, so we're letting the bike warm up now. We've already done some preliminary testing, and the initial results are quite promising already. We found some horsepower. So right now we're just going to do a little more warming up. We've let the bike warm up and cool down a few times while I've worked on the map. And today we're going to just do maybe another hour maximum on the dyno. Try to find a little more power, and I'll show you what kind of results we have. And I'll show you also what the different cylinder maps look like. Then we got to load this thing up and get out of here. We're all kind of rushing to get ready to get to the racetrack, and there's still a lot of work to be done. So this video may not have as much detail as I might normally like to have, but I'll show you as much as possible. It's just going to be me because Tex and the other guys are working on stuff to get us ready to go. Folks, that's going to be a wrap for that. I think that's all the time I really have to spend on this, and I'm pretty happy with where it's at. We still have a little more tweaking to do. Before I show you some of the cylinder trim stuff, we'll just show you where we're at, and we'll compare this. I need to pull up where we were before. I know we made like 190 something horsepower. It was 191 or something. So yes, here we go. All right, so originally it looks like one of our best runs was 191.9 horsepower. This has been, we've done obviously several pulls since the last time we made a video about this bike, just trying different things. Didn't really make any big jumps until we started working on some other little ideas that I had and doing the cylinder tuning stuff. So here's one of our best previous pulls before the last 2 days, which is 191.89, laid next to our new best pull, which is going to be 200.9. So there are some variables there that are really important to point out because this stuff does have a big impact. We are running a street tire now, pretty smoked. I don't even know what it is, a Midas or something. Yeah. So this is a customer tire that we kept and we use for dyno purposes because it's been pretty consistent. So keep that in mind. We had a slick on there before, but we've definitely made real gains. And a lot of that has been, we did some stuff with timing, it's typical, you know, nothing big there. I found a couple of horsepower in that. And then that cylinder mapping really made a difference. There was a lot of, really just throughout the entire rev range, each one of those cylinders It just likes something different. So I spent some time on that, and there's still more to be had here, but this is where we're at now, almost 10 horsepower, which I think is quite good. And we picked up some torque. Some of that torque is definitely due to the timing changes I made, because it was right in this area that we saw a bit of a gain from the timing. But something else I'll show you guys, which you might find interesting, is basically how this stacks up to the V4, which of course is kind of like our king of the dyno on pump gas right now. I know this is a good one here. So you can see this is an RPM axis at the bottom. Obviously the V4 revs much higher. On this run, we're stopping it in the high 15s, but we can actually rev the V4 past 16,000 RPM if we really want to. And as you can see, it pulls all the way to the top. But the Kawasaki makes considerably more mid-range. Now, that's one of those things where it kind of depends on how you look at this, because you could scale this graph a little bit. You know, naturally, what that really means is that you want to keep the V4 up in the revs. And so the Kawi, realistically, if you shifted that over the way you would be riding the V4, there's really not going to be a big benefit to the Kawi's mid-range. And that's something that, of course, this engine is still stock, or this is just pump gas and everything. That's something that in the past we've made some efforts, because the Kawi has quite the hit at low to mid RPM, kind of like right when you're getting up off the corner around that 8,000 RPM area. The Kawasaki has a pretty well-known kind of hit, and there's some tricks that like KRT do in World Superbike, and you can hear it, that they're doing to manipulate and mitigate that initial torque. And with the Ducati, since we have a lot of tools, such as, for one, it's a very smooth engine, but also has split throttle bodies, we can do some things to control that you really can't do with this. In World Superbike, they used to use a split throttle body on the Kawasaki to control that. It's illegal now because they're not factory. So there's some other stuff that we're doing to try to mitigate that, but it's one of those things that it's kind of just the nature of that engine. You can do some things when you build them to help with that, which we will be doing. This is going to be a full Superbike spec engine. And I think that by the time we're done, I do expect it to make very similar numbers to what the V4 is making. And of course the V4 engine is stock, but I've been told there's not a lot of power to be had building them into Superbike spec engines. This, I know we can find good power. We've seen it before. The camshaft profile, there's definitely room to be had there. And also in the cylinder head design, there's definitely room for improvement. So we're gonna do some stuff. And of course we're gonna increase the compression. That's just typical. We're gonna bump it up nicely. So I think that's it. I'm really happy with that. The bike's definitely 200 horsepower out of a stock engine, pump gas. I think that's a good number on our dyno. That's very respectable. So the next step for us is going to be load this thing up, try to get some laps in down at Roebling. Hopefully the weather's nice, and see how it stacks up against the Ducati. We don't have a ton of the new Pirellis, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I've just got some of the old ones on this bike. Well, old front, and we're going to throw an old rear on at first, and then once we get up to speed and feel how get it worked out, basically, and I'm happy with how the bike's handling and everything, we'll throw on the new tires and see how it goes. Okay, so before we get to the track, I'm going to show you guys, as promised, some of the difference between our cylinder trims. Once more, I'm not going to show you values just because this is our mapping and stuff, but I will show you the graphical representations of those values. And again, the values really wouldn't even be that beneficial because it's still, on this bike, we're going to have essentially 5 core fuel maps. We have a base or a fuel main map, and then we have cylinder trims. Those cylinder trims are just as in-depth and detailed as our main map, however. So it's a bit complicated. And some things you're going to notice on this with these trims is there are going to be some areas where there's really distinct similarities. Like you'll see the same dip in several of them. What that means is really I need to update my base table a bit and just resolve that there, because this is a unified area where we have, say, minus 10% fuel or something like that in those sections. So that just means I just need minus 10% in the base map, and then they would all be even there as well. So anyway, onto this. So here you see cylinder 4. This is, sorry, I hope the glare is not too bad. We'll try to do something like that. But here's cylinder 4. All right. Cylinder 3. Cylinder 2. And cylinder 1. And I mean, as you can see, each one of these maps, we're not talking huge differences here, but there are differences. I mean, if you compare, look at 1 to 4 there, and then 1 to 3, I mean, you know, that's quite distinct. And at this point, we're still very early in this. I'm going to continue to work on this at the racetrack using our data, and you know, after we have a few sessions, the disparities between these maps are going to grow further and further apart. And I expect that we'll see even more and more gains. And more importantly, it's not just about horsepower. We also want a really good throttle connection. We want this thing to be very confidence inspiring and very reactive in a positive way. So when we open the throttle, you just want the thing to do exactly what you're expecting it to do. No miss or really just nothing but the crisp throttle response you're expecting. That's what we're achieving with this. And once more, that's why we love the MoTeC M1 ECU. We have these tools, and if you have the resources, you can put something like this on your motorcycle and you can make it run better than you've ever felt before. And then of course you have all these awesome rider aids. That's like a whole nother story. Right now we're just getting the fueling, getting the engine running really well. Then we also have a whole host of rider aids that we're able to tune to make the bike not only fast as hell, but also user-friendly and not intimidating to ride. So that's what I love about this stuff. Anyway, I think that's going to be it for the shop stuff today. We've got a lot of work to do. We're going to finish wrapping this thing up. I'll give you a little cockpit shot just so you guys can see what we're working with. We actually have to update some of our buttons here because with the latest Moto America spec firmware, we gained back some of the features that we had lost when we switched away from our old, not Moto America spec MoTeC firmware. So now we have basically the best of both worlds. We have all of the features that we had previously. So now we actually have one of the buttons on this still doesn't work because it's based on the old Moto America firmware, and we've got that functionality back now. So we're going to turn that stuff back on and get back at it. But I'll show you some of our stuff. That's obviously this is our race page. This is kind of our warm-up page where you can just see some of our base values, suspension position, sensor values, throttle grip, things like that. You know, it's just all kinds of different stuff. Gear lever force. It's useful for when you're sitting in the paddock and just making sure everything's where it needs to be, or if you need to zero any sensors, this will tell you right away. All right, well, we're gonna load up, and next time I see you, I'll be in Savannah, Georgia. Okay, so we're obviously at the shop right now, and we are not at the racetrack. So first, I'm just gonna apologize and say I am a terrible vlogger. That's why I'm not good at this at all. And you might have guessed it, I forgot the GoPros. If you guys follow us on social media, you probably saw us, me specifically, reaching out via Facebook and Instagram and all the other stuff, asking, hey, does anybody have a GoPro they'll sell us or let us borrow for the weekend? Because, yeah, totally just forgot the case here. This is, unfortunately, we've been so busy lately. I had a feeling I was forgetting something, and that's what it was. So, yeah, we're just going to have to roll with that. But what I can do is give you a ride report, and I'm really sorry because I know the onboard footage is everything, and it's a lot more exciting than hearing me run my mouth about a motorcycle. So we're going to be back at the track soon. I promise you, I'm going to take the GoPros. We can't do the helmet footage with that particular organization, so it's not going to be kind of what we wanted to do, but we'll at least be able to give you some on-track footage, and then shortly thereafter, we will be racing these motorcycles. All right, so I got to ride the V4 and the ZX10RR at the track. Really happy with the Kawasaki and really happy with the Pirelli tires. I want to say huge thanks to Pirelli and also to Podium Motorsports, which is who we get our Pirellis from. They just offer awesome service and support. If you ever want to reach out to them, check out Podium Motorsports on Facebook. Podium Motorsports Pirelli, I should say, on Facebook or Instagram. But anyway, tires were badass. Absolutely love the new profiles. Really confidence inspiring, especially at Pirelli, or excuse me, at Roebling. It's kind of a bumpy track, and it's one of those places that you just have to have a good tire. It makes a huge difference, especially for somebody like me that's not a top-level pro guy that can push through like those bad feelings that you can sometimes get when you're trying to go fast. The tire just worked really good. So onto the motorcycle. There's still some fueling that needs to be done. We're going to put it back on the dyno and work on it a little more, try to find some more power. Basically, it felt nice, but I can just see, looking at some of our data, there's some areas we need to improve a little bit. So we're going to basically put it back on the dyno, spend a good couple of hours. Obviously, you saw, you know, the video. I didn't show everything in this video you're watching now, but I really only spent like 30-45 minutes or something like that, which is not enough to do a good calibration. You know that. So we're going to spend a good couple hours and really grind away on this thing and just get it nice and dialed in. Spend a bunch of time on the main map and then go on and do our individual cylinder maps. And hopefully we can get some good footage and give you something that you're going to want to see in the next video. We're going to have to close this one out with no track footage, but I just wanted to report this thing worked really well. The bike felt really fast and smooth. And I can tell that once we do especially after we do the engine, but even after we just refine the mapping with what we've got now, this thing's going to be a serious weapon. Very soon we're going to begin engine development, and I'm confident this motorcycle is just going to be an absolute rocket and have just excellent strengths in every area. So that's going to be very exciting. And we may have somebody doing some testing on it soon. We're going to see how that goes, but we're in talks with some folks, and we are talking about doing some testing, and hopefully you might be able to see somebody properly quick do some laps on this thing. And also, we had some people that asked about the frame covers. We're going to link to these in the description. These are AP Carbon, and that's the 200 gram version. We really like them. I think they're a lot nicer than the ones we had them before. They fit really well. They just look really good. So that's that. And with this, I think that's going to be a good conclusion for the video. Thanks again. So sorry for not taking the cameras to the track. I promise you I'll do better next time. And we will see you for the next one. Thanks.